This last session is going to be a panel discussion, Teaching Kinesiology in the 21st Century. We have 5 presenters. Each one of them will take 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll leave it open for questions at the end. I'll introduce them all, then I'll sit down and they can take it over. We have Jeff Fairbrother, David Bassett, Phil Martin, Lynn Panton, and Amy Schwartz. So I think Jeff's going to go first.
Good evening. It's great to have this opportunity to speak to you. I listened very carefully to the keynote this morning, so I'm using a generational appropriate technology. So I first want to say thank you to David Bassett for organizing this panel. He was really the driving force behind it, and I want to thank the other panelists, obviously, for the time they put in and for agreeing to participate. Dave asked me to just give a very brief introduction and an overview from an administrator's perspective. I spent 4 years as a department head at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and now about 2 years as associate dean. And so I think all of you who have served in those roles know that you get a definite perspective on some of the challenges that are facing kinesiology as a discipline. So the topic of this panel is the challenges that are really introduced by undergraduate enrollment growth in kinesiology. And the story is one that we're all familiar with. It's a story of limited resources and many, many demands. Some problems are a lot easier to detect than others. Enrollment growth tends to hit you right in between the eyes if you're a department head or a department chair. If you're running regular enrollment management reports, it's pretty hard to miss when your waiting lists have 40 students for every single section. What I'd like to just talk about real briefly is 3 problems that departments face that maybe aren't as obvious until they appear on your radar, but you still have to deal with them, and they make the solutions that you'll hear about from the panelists a little bit more complex. The first one of those problems is what I call the stale data problem, and that is that often by the time you're making a case to central administration for more resources, the data that you have available from institutionally approved data is too old to actually say this is what's going on right now. And so it undermines your case. Another problem is what I call the many mouths to feed problem. We don't just teach undergraduate kinesiology classes, right? That's not the only thing that we do. Many of us also have graduate programs and research agendas that we need to make sure faculty are productive, and then many outreach and service, as well as just institutional activities that we have to engage in. A corollary of the many mouths to feed is the side effects problem, and that is that every decision that you make as a department head to solve one problem almost unavoidably has unintended consequences that complicate your life in some other area. So if you put out one fire, it doesn't really help you if in the meantime another fire is getting bigger and stronger. And then the third problem is what I call the windows of opportunity problem, and that's that sometimes we face, even when central administration says, we have resources for you, we have some funds, they don't come early enough for you to make strategic decisions that are relevant to the demands that you're facing in your particular department. So those problems, I think, if you spend any time trying to face the challenge of undergraduate enrollment growth, you experience those problems, but they aren't necessarily obvious on the front end, and it's worth thinking about them as you move forward. So now I'm going to turn it over to our first panelist, Phil Martin from Iowa State, and they're going to take about 10 minutes each and go through their particular stories.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. I think I've been to every AKA workshop, and one of the things that's very nice is to see the growth. And then the second observation that is reinforced every year is that we share a lot of commonalities in our programs. There are a lot of similarities. We face some similar challenges. I'm going to tell you a little bit about ISU, then our college, then a fair amount more about our department and some of the challenges we've faced. So Iowa State University is one of the 3 state-supported institutions in the state of Iowa. We have a single board of regents that oversees us. We are the land-grant institution, And we're sort of the engineering and the ag school within the state of Iowa, so those programs are emphasized there. Our college is human sciences. There are 7 academic colleges. We're the 5th largest. We have about 4,650 students in the college. That's down just a little bit from a couple of years ago. Our theme, our college theme, is, I think I saw this on someone else's slide, something very similar, but we're about educating people to work with people. So all of our academic departments, which are listed at the bottom, apparel, events, and hospitality management, food science and human nutrition, human development and family studies, our department, and the School of Education form this college. In terms of our department, we offer programs across the full range, undergraduate and graduate. We have 2 undergraduate degree programs, athletic training, which we're in the process of planning for a transition to a professional master's, and then Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology and Health, where we have 5 options. The most recent addition to this is one called Physical Activity and Health Promotion. There's a bit of overlap. We had some interesting discussions about some overlap between physical activity, health promotion, exercise science, and community and public health. But we're feeling that out now that students are beginning to populate this new option. We also offer master's and PhD degrees, and we're part of a partnership with Food Science and Human Nutrition on a 3+2 program that ends up with a diploma that says BS/MS in diet and exercise. Very interesting. This is, I'll start with graduate enrollment, then I'll tell you a little bit about undergraduate enrollment. So we have had somewhat steady enrollment. We have a relatively small graduate program. We took a dip down with the recession, and part of the reason for that was because we underwent some major budget reductions, and part of the covering of that reduction was some assistantship money. But we built that back. One of the important developments for us, one of our goals was to flip the ratio, essentially of master's to PhD students, where we shifted much more emphasis towards training doctoral students. And so you can see the shifts that have occurred there. This is what our undergraduate program enrollment looks like. The growth actually starts over here somewhere, way out over here. We grew almost double in 10 years, so we were growing at about a 10% rate. And then interestingly enough, we've actually plateaued and then come down some. So we've dropped the number on top. Maybe I should first say, the reason for the yellow bars, which represents athletic training, it's not that we didn't have athletic training before fall 2012, but it was separated then. It became a separate program, a degree program, so that's why it shows up separately there. So otherwise, the athletic training numbers are built into these early numbers. So in the period that we're talking about, the last decade essentially, from 2008 to 14, we grew by 64%, and then we dropped 14% in the last few years. And it's really been pretty welcomed relief. Not everyone is excited about that, but it really, we can see it in our course enrollments. We're the 3rd largest, we have the 3rd largest undergraduate enrollment at Iowa State. These are some trends in the various options. So this is pre-health professions, and this is exercise science, and then we have a collection of programs, smaller options and degree programs. Oops, sorry about that. That are small, but they have relatively steady enrollment, so we're pleased about that. And you can see this relates to one of our previous comments about the large proportion of students that we train that indicate that they have interest in going on to healthcare training and careers of some sort. So that gives you an indication of how we're distributed. And you can see that most of our growth really occurred in that pre-health professions option. It's plateaued and held strong, essentially, in the last few years. This is a little bit about our faculty and the way we've accomplished the task of educating all the undergraduate students and that cohort of graduate students. So we had a modest decline in total FTEs with the recession. Probably many of you did, so you can see that here, although we stayed steady in terms of our NTE faculty, which are represented by the gold bars. We've had slow increases over time in general. Of course, you have some ups and downs when you have retirements and a person might decide to go to another institution. But at the same time, we've been able to increase our numbers of tenure track faculty as well as NTE faculty. And all of us know that NTE faculty are rather important for us accomplishing our mission in these large programs because they teach so many more students. The impact that they have on students is so much greater. So right now we're sitting in terms of the ratio of FTEs, 42% of essentially our NTE faculty account for 42% of our faculty FTEs. And most of those are master's trained, although we have several individuals that have the terminal degree as well, which is something that we like. So how have student to faculty ratios trended with those numbers? So the combination of the enrollment numbers with our faculty FTEs, the red bars are the combination of tenure track and non-tenure eligible, whereas the gold bars are just tenure track faculty. And so you can see that those profiles are pretty similar to what the enrollment profiles look like, where the student to faculty ratios climbed, and then they've declined slightly here in the last few years. But we run pretty high student to faculty ratios, one of the highest on campus. Some of the specific courses that are taken by all or most of our students, and the table just reflects, it does a comparison of 2008-9 versus 15-16. It happened to be a comparison we made in our recent program review document. But how have we addressed the enrollment growth? No rocket science really applied here. We were forced into increasing class sizes. We really had no choice but to do that. We made the decision to eliminate laboratory experiences from 300 level courses. The reason for that was because it was beginning to have a rather significant influence on research time in the laboratories that we were double dipping on. And in addition to that, we lost some TA support. We created 400 level lab experiences, but the students didn't come. So that was a failed prediction on my part. We've increased our reliance on NTE faculty, and we've added class sections, as you can see. So in the future, what we hope to do is to continue to add class sections because we want to continue to bring down class section sizes. We want to reestablish laboratory experiences and reduce class sizes. So a few closing remarks. First, we're an RCM institution, and so the number of majors that we have in student credit hours really drive college revenues. And I say college revenues because that model flows to the college, and the deans have lots of control over those funds. And so we generated a lot of income, but unfortunately our budgeting in the department was still driven mostly historically. Tuition is a big conversation point. Our tuition is relatively low. One of the things I think that is, there's sort of a double whammy here. So our tuition levels are low, and we have declining state support for higher education while we're experiencing growth as an institution, as well as in many of the colleges. So a few of our current trends, new developments, goals, practicum experiences, we've been able to maintain those. Essentially all of our students have some practical experiences of some sort, many 8 to 16 credits. Faculty are very good about providing opportunities for independent studies, research experiences, and outreach experiences. One of the things that may really help is that we're part of a conversation on differential tuition. So juniors and seniors, if this goes through, will pay an additional $1,600 per year in tuition. That is specifically for mostly experiential learning. We're in the process, we have some new faculty tracks. This is a university initiative to increase the diversity of the types of faculty we have and to recognize their accomplishments, the types of contributions they make. So we'll be able to take advantage of that, particularly the clinical professor track with athletic training. We plan to reintroduce 300-level laboratory experiences. We should be able to do that primarily because we've undergone some renovations that's opened up some space for creating a nice teaching laboratory space. And again, we hope to decrease class sizes, particularly at the 400 level. And so we think we're getting into a good position where we can make that happen.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is from, oh, let me give you the full time here.
Yeah, don't.
Is from Florida State University, Lynn Panton.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I've been at Florida State now for about 17 years, and I've really seen our enrollment grow. So what I'd like to do over the next few minutes is talk about how we have managed or try to manage our undergrad enrollment and some strategies we have used to try and lower the enrollment, and then some of the events that have happened in the last few years that are giving way to new resources from our administration. Just some background for the college. We are in the College of Human Sciences, and it's made up of 3 departments. The Department of Family and Child Sciences, Department of Retail Merchandising and Product Development, and then our department, the Department of Nutrition, Food, and Exercise Science. In our department, we have both our doctoral degrees, master degrees, and the undergraduate degrees. We have 2 doctoral degrees, one in human sciences that our students in nutrition and food sciences take, and then one in exercise physiology. We run about 20 to 30 doctoral students in the program. For our master's degree program, we have 2 main degrees, the food and nutrition, and then the exercise physiology. Under exercise physiology, we have 3 major tracks: sports science, sports nutrition, and then the exercise physiology. In the master's program, we run about 50 to 70 students. Then our undergrad degrees, we have 4 undergrad degrees: food and nutrition, dietetics, athletic training, and exercise physiology. So all I'm going to talk about today is the exercise physiology, and if you can see the numbers, and this started in 2002, where we've seen a large increase in our enrollment. But we started looking, well, before that, just to talk about the number of faculty here. This is just our faculty in exercise physiology. So we have about 6 full-time tenure track faculty. There's only 1 faculty in the last few years that we hired was on a main teaching track that helped us with the program. And it's just been in the last couple years where we have seen some increase in our faculty hires. So if you look at the number of students to the faculty ratio, you can see that the numbers are quite high. And in 2013, I think it was there, we're seeing up almost 300 to 1 as far as the ratio of faculty and the students. So some of the things that we have been working on over the years, in 2004, we implemented a mapping program for the undergrads where they had their sets of prereqs that they had to attain. If they got off in a 1 semester, they were put on hold, and they were counseled on trying to get back on the course map. They were given another semester. If they didn't get back on their mapping, they needed to go into another major. As you can see, those numbers really didn't change too much with the implementing of the mapping or the milestones. A little while later, we decided to add a grade policy to that mapping. So for all the prereq courses into our program, so all the science courses, the biologies, the chemistries, the mathematics, students had to have a C or better. With that, they were allowed one repeat. So if any of those courses, they got a C minus, they could repeat that course one time to better their grade, but that was the last time they could ever repeat another course. So if they got a C or C minus in chemistry, repeated that, got a better grade, and then took biology, got a C minus in biology, then they had to change the major. So looking at our GPAs, that it's really helped as far as boosting up the GPAs, getting rid of some of the students that were taking classes over and over again. So you do see some of the numbers coming down, but there's other events in there that I think have increased that decrease in the enrollment. A few years ago, we hired a new dean. A lot of you know Dr. Michael Delp. He has been a huge part of this organization. But he really became an advocate as far as going to the administration, really making a difference and showing the numbers, the monies that were coming into our college in relationship to the number of student credit hours that we were generating. And in just a moment, I'll show you some of the slides that he created. Last year, we had our graduate program review, and the external reviewer is in this audience. And if you all are looking, and I'm sure he doesn't want any more work, but he was an amazing advocate for us in getting our story across to the administration. I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, but he basically told our administration that if they weren't willing to put the resources into our department, into our college, then they should get rid of our graduate program. He also went on to say that if he had a graduate student, he would not recommend them to come to Florida State University because the faculty are so overwhelmed with the undergraduate students. So I think that really resonated with our administration to some degree, and of course with the support of the dean advocating for us. So this fall, we have been granted 6 hires in exercise physiology, which is amazing, and another 4 hires in nutrition. So that's 10 hires that we can possibly get. So 3 of those positions will be, I think, tenure track faculty, and then another 3 positions will be teaching. So just based on the number there of 935, close to it, that brings our ratio down. Still high, but a lot better than it was at 75-1. The other thing that's going on with that significant drop that you see in the numbers there this year is that the university has established 2 new majors. The College of Medicine has developed an interdisciplinary medical science program, and currently this fall they have 800 students enrolled in that program. So I think a lot of our drop is coming from there. They've also established a public health bachelor's degree, and we're losing students from there. So it'd be kind of nice to see a little bit more of a drop. However, I was talking to our advisors last week, and they were saying that there were kids trying to transfer back from the interdisciplinary medical program back into our program. So hopefully we won't get a huge influx with those students. This is just showing some of the slides that the dean created as far as our funding, looking at our tuition and E&G funding. And and it's really small, I'm sorry. This is our college here. There are 13 colleges at the undergrad level. Our funding for our college is pitiful. This is the average tuition line, and you can see that we are well below, and this is the average across 2010 through 2016. Just another slide looking, this has come off, but this was looking at FTE, and the next slide will be for student credit hours. But again, you can see that we are way below just the average for the tuition. And here it is for SCHs. So what have we done with this increased enrollment that we have? Well, one thing what we haven't done is gotten rid of our laboratory sections for our classes. These are the 4 main classes that our exercise physiology students take. They do take other electives. They go outside of the college or department to take some of the other electives that are offered. We have 11 electives that they can choose from, and they can choose up to 3 in their program of study. So the anatomy, physiology 1 and 2, exercise phys, and the testing and prescription are offered every semester and in the summer. This is just one sample from the spring of 2015. I teach the exercise testing and prescription course. That was my highest number of students I had at 184. Usually testing and prescription and anatomy physiology are a little bit lower in numbers because the athletic training students don't have to take those, or the dietetic students, so our numbers are a little bit lower. How many sections of labs? That semester, 184. One. I teach 184 kids. But I have 15, that semester I had 15 laboratories. This semester I teach 151 kids with 11 laboratories, and I'm teaching in the honors section there. So I have 4 TAs. So this is how we're dealing with our large classrooms. Our large student numbers, we have these large lecture rooms, and this is probably one of my least favorite classrooms. I try to engage the students. I like to walk around. I like to make sure, if they have their computers, what they're doing on their computers, are they focusing on the class? I go up there and talk to them. Well, if I move right to this front row here to talk to the students, I lose my balcony kids. I can't even see my kids. On Tuesday, I went upstairs to try to lecture them, and that was a little tough, lecturing above the students and trying to look down, and I'm not real good with heights. So that wasn't fun for me. So there's a lot of challenges with teaching these large classrooms. But we do our best, and we've used the top hat or the eye clickers. We use online exam testing. I try to incorporate, we've lost the practicum. We haven't taught practicum in a number of years. I try to add a service learning component to my class that's not required, but I usually get 4 or 5 students that want to go out into the community and have this experience. The reason we can do these large class sizes is our TAs. We wouldn't survive without our TAs, who are the backbone of our laboratory sections. We have multiple laboratory sections for each of those classes. They fund our grad students, so those 4 classes can fund up to 12 to 16 students depending on the semester. We also have, which is really nice to keep our equipment and supplies going, when you have 600 students taking exercise phys and testing prescription a semester, our equipment gets really beaten up and we use a lot of supplies. So we are able to use supply fees and equipment fees. And we have beautiful laboratories that are solely dedicated to teaching. So those laboratories, 12 to 15 kids in those, where they get the experience, stress testing, VO2 max testing. We have Monarchs, Wingates, the Biodex, so our equipment fees will replace when those machines break down because of the wear and tear. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next panelist is Dave Bassett.
Okay, I'm also at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville with Jeff Fairbrother as the Associate Dean there. The Department of Kinesiology, Recreation, and Sports Studies is housed within the College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences, which was formed by a merger of the College of Education and the College of Human Ecology about 15 years ago. We are one of 8 departments in the college. About half of these departments are graduate only, but 4 of them do have undergraduate programs as well. In our department, we offer a doctoral degree in kinesiology and sports studies. You can see here that there are specializations in biomechanics, exercise physiology, sports psychology, motor behavior, sport management, and physical activity epidemiology. We also have master's and bachelor's degrees. The emphases there are in kinesiology or recreation and sport management. This shows what's been happening with undergraduate education from 2011 to 2015. We experienced about a 66% increase in undergraduate enrollment. That's continued to grow, and in 2017 we now have 1,500 students. More than 2/3 of them are in kinesiology. The remaining ones are in sport management and therapeutic recreation. And you can see that we've had a slight decrease in our graduate enrollments. The master's enrollment has fallen off by about 25 students. The doctoral enrollment has fallen by about 5 students between 2011 and 2015. And probably that's because the faculty are spending more time with undergraduates and they just don't have as much time to work with graduate students. This shows our faculty, total faculty FTE. So I've been there 30 years, and going back 30 years, we've been constant at about 19 to 20 faculty in the department. 2 of them are now non-tenure track professors of practice, and then we have a total of 1.2 FTEs that's made up of various part-time adjunct lecturers. We also have about 40 graduate assistants. Roughly half of those are teaching in the PE activity program. The others are teaching lecture courses and in various subdisciplines, and then laboratory courses in the exercise science area. We also have 2 graduate assistants who work in some centers that are housed within our department. Our overall, for the whole department, our student to faculty ratio is about 83 to 1. Of course, the RSM faculty still are teaching classes of about 30 students, so it's primarily the exercise science faculty that are, we're well over 100 to 1 if you just looked at the exercise science folks. This compares to 17 to 1 for the university as a whole. And the administration is well aware of this and they're trying to address it, but so far we haven't had a lot of movement in the student to faculty ratio. One of the consequences is that we have 150 students or so in all of our core kinesiology classes. So we teach these in one large big lecture hall, and then we break them out into labs. We might have 8 to 10 laboratory sections. I tried to do what Lynn had done, looking at some budget figures here, so I contacted somebody in the Office of Budget and Finance and got the budgets for all of the colleges. The College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences is the 4th from the right, so we're just about in the middle in terms of the amount of funding per student. I left the law school out because they were just way off the charts. And some of these colleges, I did not alter that horizontal black line, but some of the colleges do have differential tuition. So that would be the College of Nursing, the College of Business, the College of Engineering, and the College of Architecture. They have differential tuition. So they actually pay higher tuition than what's shown here. Now looking at the College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences across different departments in our college, Kinesiology, Recreation, and Sports Studies is on the far right. All of the other departments are to the left of us. So I haven't yet shown that to any administrators, but it'll be kind of interesting to see what their reaction is to that. So, there's a number of factors that really are out of our control. One of them is that we do not have entrance restrictions to the major. We went to something called U-Track a few years ago, where students declare their major coming in as freshmen. So if they say, I want to be a kinesiology major, they are a kinesiology major. We can't put any kind of undergraduate GPA requirement on admission to the major. In addition, University of Tennessee, and I think this is true of Florida State as well, we have a historic incremental budget model. So this does not compensate the department for increases in enrollment. I mean, basically our department budgets are based on how many faculty members we have, not how many students we have. If you have a 500% increase in students, good for you. You know, you're doing a good service for the university, but you're not compensated really for that. Now, I will say that there is a small pot of money called the Strategic Instructional Fund, where you can apply to that if you say, hey, we've got, 200 overflow of students in this class and we need to open some extra lab sections or something. You can get a little money for lab TAs and so forth. What is within our control, I've started giving faculty 2-for-1 credit. Those who teach very large lecture classes, I feel like it takes more time to communicate with all those students. So if they teach a class of 150, that's the only class they will teach that semester, whereas normally they would have to teach 2 small classes. We have also eliminated some of the elective courses that was necessary in order to go to this 2-for-1 model of teaching assignments. And we've hired more adjunct instructors and more GTAs. One of the unique things we've done is to offer one of our classes as an online asynchronous class, so I'd like to show that to you. It's called Physical Activity Epidemiology, and it is taught by Dr. Gene Fitzhugh. He's somebody who we knew had quite a bit of experience doing this because he has put classes online for University of Alabama and also for UNC Greensboro. So he would go there in the summer and do all the filming and so forth, and then he'd set up an online course, and then he'd leave, and they would have a graduate teaching assistant teach it after he left. So we said, well, why can't we do this? I mean, he's a faculty member on our faculty. So I gave him a sabbatical in spring of 2017, and he developed a course, filmed all the sessions and so forth. We got $20,000 from the governor in order to help us with this initiative, and I also gave him a 50% graduate teaching assistant. So over the spring and summer, he taped 40 different mini lectures. He actually had to type out the entire script, which was heavily edited by the folks in digital media services and information technology. They filmed him in the studio. There's a lot of stuff in the background that they put on the green screen, and there's video clips that they insert in his lecture. And the Canvas course went online last fall. He had 150 students in there. It went very smoothly without any problems. This semester he's gone to 200 students. We might go to 250 next year. The student feedback was very positive. You can see here that about 85 to 95% of students agreed with these positive statements regarding the instructor, the class format, and course content. So Dr. Fitzhugh has become something of a minor celebrity. When I walk across campus with him, kids will come up and introduce themselves and, hey, you're my professor in my online class. And he's like, okay, I guess I am. He's never seen them before, but they all know who he is. And I will say that he's a fairly early adopter of technology, both in the classroom and on his bicycle. He has all these electronic gadgets. There's like crash sensors in his helmet in case he crashes, and they phone his wife and tell him where he is, and he's got power meters and altimeters and heart rate monitors and just everything you could think of. So he really likes technology, and he's good at using it with students. So we're hoping to put more classes online in the future, and we think that this might be one way of efficiently handling the burden of teaching large students. Classes sizes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. I do think it's, before our last speaker comes up, it's important to point out that some of Lynn's students have never seen her before either, if they sit in the second row. So our next speaker is Ann Swartz.
Okay. Good evening. I am fully aware that I am what is between you and the reception. So I will try and use our time effectively. So, is this live? Oh, well, oh, the clicker, sorry. Who's got the clicker? Oh, no, the clicker. Okay, okay. Okay, so this is, I have to start out with this beautiful picture because this is our campus. And for those of you who haven't been to Milwaukee, we are right here and we have wonderful views of the lake. It's a beautiful place to come. Anybody who wants to come and visit, we'll welcome you. So a little bit about the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Our total enrollment is about 27,000 to 28,000 students. We are one of 2 doctoral granting institutions in the state. We are unique in that we have both a research mission, we're an R1 institution, but we also have an access mission. And that can be challenging in terms of decision making, where resources go. And we've found over the last couple of years that we've really had to look very closely at which mission we are going to prioritize. Our department is within the College of Health Sciences. And within that college, we are the 2nd largest revenue generator in the university behind the School of Business. But within the college, we have many professional programs. We have physical therapy and athletic training. We have biomedical sciences. We have communication sciences and disorders. And we have healthcare informatics, or healthcare administration and informatics, and then occupational sciences and technology. Within our department, we have a BS in kinesiology that has 2 tracks. One is a pre-professional track, and then one is a track that focuses on preparing our students to enter the profession. We have an MS and a PhD program, and we're just launching a BS to MS program, similar to Iowa State, but within kinesiology. And then a couple of years ago, we started a nutritional sciences program. So my story is very similar to those stories that you've heard already. We have enough students, we don't have enough faculty, and we definitely don't have enough money. And so with our undergraduate enrollments, our increase in enrollments happened before 2008. And you can see then they've held pretty steady since 2008. The black bars represent those students in our BS Kinesiology program, and then the blue represents the students that are in our Nutritional Sciences program. We're pretty satisfied with a steady enrollment because most of our colleagues across the UWM campus and within the UW system have seen decreases in enrollments, as Dan mentioned earlier. In our graduate programs, we've seen increases in our graduate enrollments. The black bars represent our MS students, and then the blue bars represent our PhD students. And so we've seen increases in our graduate students. This just looks at our student credit hours, and our line is the top line. Our department is the top line. And this just shows that we are the largest student credit hour generator in our college. And so the other departments fall below us in terms of generating student credit hours. Personnel, this is where we struggle. We have not enough faculty. We held pretty steady. We held pretty steady up until about 2008, and then in response to the increases in enrollments, we got a couple new hires, and then we had budget reductions that occurred, and with that, encouragement of retirements, and so we saw a number of our faculty retire, and when they retired, we were not able to replace them. We were able to add some instructional academic staff, but again, we've seen quite a bit of turnover. Even though our numbers are remaining steady, we've seen some turnover, which causes its own challenges. Budgets. We have seen some pretty significant reductions in our budgets. When we look at our college has seen over the last 5 years about a 12.6 reduction in its budget. And then within our department, we've seen about a 50% reduction in our S&E budget, which makes it very difficult. That's how we pay for faculty travel, that's how we pay for all our supplies, that's how we pay for our maintenance contracts. And so we've had to make a lot of tough decisions on what don't we pay for. So, how do we maintain quality education given this circumstance where we have low budgets, we don't have enough faculty and staff to deliver our courses, but we do have a lot of really great students that deserve a high quality education from us. And so we've really taken a multi-pronged approach to this, to maintaining a high quality education. So some things that we've done is we've really looked at how we teach and how our students learn. And we know that we have to have large class sizes. So how do we manage those large class sizes but still get through to the students? And so we have some really creative faculty, one of them sitting in the back of the room there, Laura Rooney, who has taken our Introduction to Kinesiology class and she's turned it into very much of, there's 100 students in it, but she's turned it into an inquiry-based class where then she has a lot of interaction with the students, a lot of personal interaction with the students, and the students have a lot of interaction with each other, which helps to then start our building of community within our student body and our faculty. We want our students to be engaged in their education. We want our students to be engaged with the faculty. And so we've taken some purposeful steps, whether it's having faculty be more engaged in some of the extracurricular activities that are going on, or providing opportunities for community-based learning so that our students really feel engaged within the program. We've worked very closely with our advisors to help our advisors direct our students to the appropriate classes that they need to take and to direct our students, honestly, to the classes within our program. So with their elective courses, they can take courses outside of our department, but because of the budget structure that we have, we're on a marginal tuition revenue budget. And so our SDH becomes very important. And so if our students take classes outside of the college, then our revenue goes outside of the college. So we need our students to take courses within our college. We have purposefully limited enrollments in our lab sections. We've kept our lab sections capped at 12 students. What this does is this allows the students to have that hands-on experience in the lab. It allows them to get to know their teaching assistants really well. And it also benefits us because it allows us to make a case for needing more graduate students or graduate teaching assistants. And so it benefits both of our programs. We're starting to look at hiring more instructional staff that can teach higher teaching loads, and I've heard that a couple times today. We have really looked at making sure and working with individual faculty members that the service that they take on is very purposeful and that it's in line with the mission of the department and the mission of the college. And so we have a university that's very service heavy, and there are committees for everything. And so we want to make sure that our faculty are spending their time wisely, and it's going to benefit them, it's going to benefit our students. So we've looked at flexible workloads, and we are trying to put people where their strengths are. And so if somebody has an aptitude for online teaching, we're providing them the opportunity to engage in more online teaching. If we have somebody who is a strong researcher, then we're providing them with the opportunity to spend more of their time researching. We've also recently been able to put the right people in the right positions. So we have a very strong undergraduate program coordinator right now, and we have a very strong instructional academic staff who really engage with our undergraduates. We have also really had to focus on our purpose and look at what our strategic direction is and ask ourselves continuously, is this in line with what we need to be doing. Is this in line with the strategic directives of the university? If it's not, then we aren't going to take up that opportunity. And then finally, we constantly ask ourselves, is this new initiative sustainable? We don't necessarily know whether our budgets are going to increase or whether they're going to stay the same. And we have to make the assumption that our budgets are going to stay the same or potentially decrease. And so when we take on these new initiatives, can we sustain it with the people that we have and the resources that we have? Okay. So that's how we've taken our approach to enhancing quality education. And I will end with that.
Thank you very much.